All right, look, guys, this is part 3. Part three. Let's just go over this last bit. Then any questions you have, you're more than welcome to ask me. So if we talk about complement and supplement, what does that mean again?
90 and 180.
90 and 180. Okay, complement, your two angles add up to 90 degrees or pi over 2. Or your two angles add up to 180 and pi. Now, guys, when you find the complement and the supplement, some of you made mistakes on this over and over and over again. It's the 90, 180 minus the angle. It's not the angle minus because it's the two angles adding together to be that value. So if I say 90 minus 104, what happens here? Negative. I get a negative. That means you're at no complement. It's not 104 minus 90. You have to put the 90 or the 180 first. So in this case, I would say 180 minus 104. And what would the supplement be? 76 degrees. Okay, remember, you will have a calculator. Yes?
I remember you told me there was one that you could, there was one that you like, it was 104 minus something else. Or I think
That's when we talk about reference angles. Depending upon where that is on the unit circle. Let's talk about that. Hold on. All right, 3 pi over 4. So if you're finding the complement, you would say pi over 2 minus 3 pi over 4. We need to get a common what? Common denominator. So do you guys agree this would be 2 pi over 4? Mm-hmm. 2 pi minus 3 pi is going to give me negative pi over 4. What does that tell you? There's no complement, and that's okay. So then I say pi minus 3 pi over 4. So get a common denominator. 4 pi, right, over 4. So 4 pi minus 3 pi is pi over 4. What is your supplement? Pi over 4. Please remember, guys, it has to be 90 or 180 minus the angle, not the other way around. All right, if you're finding the arc length of a sector, talk about arc length is S equals R times theta. What is important about theta before you guys start doing this? This has to be in radians. Got to be in radians first. So I'm going to say, okay, my radius that they gave me is 6, and I'm going to convert 225 into radians. What goes into 225 and 180? 5. Okay, 5 goes into 180 36 times. 5 goes into 225. How many? 45. Okay, something else go into both? 9. 9 goes into 45 5 times. 9 goes into 36 4 times. So you have 5 pi over 4. Now, you have to read the question. If it says round your answer to the nearest whatever, that means go ahead and use pi in your calculator. If it says leave it in terms of pi, leave it in terms of pi. If it doesn't give you directions, do what you want. If it's a multiple choice, pick the right answer. But in this case, guys, we can simplify a little bit, right? 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 6 3 times. So you end up with 15 pi over 2. If you change that to a decimal, you would hit 15 times pi divided by 2, or whatever the decimal is. But it is so important, guys. You have to convert the central angle into radians. Yeah.
Does it matter if the answer is like decimal or radians?
If it's a free response question and they don't specify, then you can do what you want. If it does specify, then just follow the directions.
So it's 15 over
15 pi over 2. Yeah. So in this case, guys, look, it says find the radian measure. So I have S equals R times theta. What is the S? 8. What's the R? 6. Divide both by 6, and you get theta equals what? 4 over 3. You can leave it just like that because that means the radians is already in there. If I asked you to convert, then you would have to convert. But it says find the radian measure, so there you go. Just leave it. That's fine. Well, this is 4 over 3 radians, so you'd be going from radians to degrees. So you'd want radians on the bottom and degrees on the top. But I'm not going to ask you to do that. It's already in there. Just assume that it's already in there. All right, a point on a terminal side of an angle. Guys, this should be familiar. Hopefully it's familiar. Where did 41 and 42 go? A point on the terminal side of an angle. If you need to draw the triangle because you don't visualize it, that's fine. If you have a triangle, though, this is my x value and this is my y value, correct? So the x value is what? What is the x value? -9. What is the y value? 12, okay? They're telling you that the point on a terminal side, if you want to draw the triangle, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. If you're finding the cosine and the cosecant, you need x, you need y, and you need r. What do you know the x is? -9. What do you know the y is? 12. How do we find r? -9 squared plus 12 squared. You guys will have a calculator. So 81 plus 144 is how much?
225.
225? Isn't that pretty? What's the square root of 225? 15. So remember, cosine is x over r. So the cosine is what? -9 over 15. Cosecant, yeah, sorry. Cosecant is what? If we simplify this, right, it's -3 over 5. Cosecant is what over what? Good, r over y. So what's your r value? 15 over, what's your y value? Hello, 12. And then just simplify. What is that? 5 over 4. Perfect. If it's a radical, then go ahead. Guys, if it says exact answers, I know you have a calculator. But if it says exact, that means you can't have decimals. So use your calculator to try and break down, but don't give me the decimal equivalent. Went over there. All right, if we're going to solve, this is 3, 3, 3, 4, solving. If we're going to solve, this is my function that I'm trying to get all by itself, right? So what do I have to do first? Hold on one second. What do I have to do first? You want to divide. You want to divide both sides by 4 to get that all by itself. So I have 8 to the x minus 1 equals 32 divided by 4 is 8, right? Now, this is an exponential function. So I would take what of each side? Exponent. You would do the opposite, which is log. But what did Alexa just tell us? What did she notice? They have the same base. If they have the same base, what can you do? You can just cancel them. So this is x minus 1 equals 1. What do you do to both sides? Add 1. So x equals 2. Guys, with all of the solving, what is the beauty about that? What can you do with your x? You can plug it in. Any question that says x equals, you can go back with your calculator and plug it in, right? Remember, I uploaded all the answers, so you guys can check this again. If we have to expand, that means we're doing what? Pulling apart. Okay, now think about this. Just don't even do anything yet, but let's talk. Multiplication. When we're expanding, multiplication becomes addition. Division becomes subtraction, and exponents become coefficients. Good. So how many times am I going to write the word log? Well, I have a 40, I have an x, and I have a z. So how many times am I writing the word log? 3 times. I have log base 7 of 40 plus, why am I saying plus? Because I'm multiplying, good. Log base 7, of x cubed. And then I'm going to say minus, hold on, log base 7 of z to the 5th. I like to do things in steps. Is this completely expanded? No. What do I have to do with the 3 and with the 5? They become coefficients. So this is log 7 of 40 plus 3 log 7 of x minus 5 log 7 of z. Remember, pull apart. Every little thing gets its own log. Yes, sir?
So the 3 goes in front of the log.
Yep, in front. Becomes coefficient. All right, I'm going to go to the next page because, okay, there the problems are. Yeah. What does it mean to condense?
It's smaller.
You make it smaller. You smush it together. So this is the opposite. What do your coefficients become? Exponents. What does addition become? Multiplication. So you don't have to do this. I just like to do this. I see this 5 and I go, oh, I'm going to have to move that there. And I know that 1/3 is going to have to go there, right? So I'm going to write the word log one time. I'm going to have log base 8. And then I have x plus 3 to the 5th power times x minus 6 to the 1/3, correct? What's one more thing that I can do to fully smush this together? What is 1/3? Not square root, but you're right. Cube root, right? Cube root of x minus 6. Remember, any fractional exponents become roots. 4th power would be 4th root. 8th power would be 8th root. 1/8 would be the 8th root. Yeah.
So if it was, for example, like a cube root, if we take that, we turn it into the equation, right?
If you started off like this and it was the cube root, then your coefficient would be like this right here is 1/3. All right. We've done this 18,000 times. All students take calculus. Look at your first, constraint, your first rule. It says sign is greater than 0. That means sign is what? Positive. So it could be in the first, could be in the second, can't be in the third, can't be in the fourth. So then my second thing says secant, which is also cosine, is negative. Okay, so cosine and secant are negative. So it can't be where?
A.
It can't be an A. That's what I was trying to say, my brain, but I said it the wrong. When I wrote it, I'm like, okay. So where is this angle, guys? In quadrant 2. Thank you. Thank you. All right, now, graphing questions. We did not put a graphing one as a free response. I'll tell that right now. So if you have a multiple choice question where they ask about the amplitude. Amplitude is which value? Your A, right? A is your amplitude. So for this problem, what would your amplitude be? 3. B is your number in front of what? X. Okay, that's going to affect what? What does B affect? Your time period. Good. C. What is C?
Pi.
Your left and right. This is plus pi. C is called your phase shift. So if a question asks you to describe the phase shift, that just means where does it go left and right. What is your D value?
0.
Up and down. Good. This is your up and down. All right. Your phase shift is left and right. Your vertical shifts are up and down. Where would this graph start? Because this would probably be a multiple choice question. So where would this graph start? How would you figure out the starting point?
C over B.
Okay, your starting point is C over B. So your C value is pi over 4. So your graph would start where? At pi over 4, right? You guys agree?
Yes.
Okay, so then you'd have to figure out, okay, it starts at pi over 4. It's cosine, so it's going to start where? At the amplitude or at the axis? It's going to start at the amplitude. Good. So this is how you would pick your graph, guys. And then your time period, if you needed to figure that out, if you couldn't figure out from the information you already have. You would take
2 pi.
Yep.
Over B.
Over B. So 2 pi over B, 2 pi over 2. But understand what each piece means. Here, what is your A value? What's your amplitude? 1/2. Good. What is your B? What's the number in front of X? 2. What is your phase shift? Negative pi over 3. Good. And what's your vertical shift up and down? 0. Is this a normal cosine or sine curve? No. This is a what kind? This is a reciprocal. It's a reflection, however you want to say it. This is a reciprocal. It's a reciprocal of what? Cosine. So just remember those things. You have to pick the graph that matches the information. What about this one? Tangent. What do we know with tangent? We need what? 4 asymptotes. How do we find those? Whatever is with x, you set equal to what? Negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. Good. So your asymptotes here, we're going to cross multiply. Would be negative pi equals 8x. So divided by 8. So you'd have an asymptote at x equals negative pi over 8. Where else? Positive pi over 8. If you're going to figure out the other ones, you got to figure out how far positive pi over 8 is from negative pi over 8. It's how many pi over 8s? 2. So I'd have an asymptote over here at 3 pi over 8, right? And I'd have one over here at negative 3 pi over 8. So you can, if you had to pick the graph, you could figure out where your asymptotes are, and then what direction are my snakes going? Downward. They're like this because it's negative. Good. Good.
So those 4 would be
Your asymptotes. Yep. All right, given the exact value, so in a case like this, you guys have your calculators on your desk, that's fine. But you're not going to do the square root of 10 in your calculator and tell me what the decimal equivalent is. That's not what you're trying to do here. So it's important that you guys understand this question and how to answer it. All right, so if they give you the sign, all right, they're telling you, this is so important, guys, to figure out the signs like positive, negative. If they give you the sign value, what are they giving you? Y over R. So I have X, Y, and R. All right, guys, so what value do you know? You know the square root of 10, and you know your R value is 4. All right, so how do I find X? A squared plus B squared, so X squared plus the square root of 10 squared equals 4. So X squared plus 10 equals 16. X squared equals 6, so square root of 6. All right, now, sign is positive, so think about this. If sign is positive, it could possibly be in quadrant 1 or 2, yeah? Yeah. Okay. So that second piece of information, cotangent, which also is tangent, is positive. That means your angle is where? In quadrant 1. Oops. Your angle is in quadrant 1. So you know that your X value and your Y value are what? Positive. So now with this information, if you had to find all 6 trig functions, I'm not going to do that right now. We just did this a million times. Sine is Y over R. Just remind yourself. Cosine theta is X over R. Tangent theta is Y over X. Good. Then our reciprocals. Cosecant of theta would be R over Y. Secant of theta would be R over X. Great. And then cotangent would be X over Y. And then what you would do with that, guys, is it says exact. That means I do not want decimals. So you can use your calculator as an aid, but you cannot give me the decimal equivalent. Sound good? Yeah. All right. This kind of a problem. Hold on. I have 2 more things to talk about, then I'm done. This kind of a problem. All right. So what kind of a problem is this? It's an exponential, but it's one of those funny ones. Can't substitute in for X. I mean, when you get your answer. Does this kind of look like this? This is a quadratic. What's going to go in the front of both parentheses? E to the what? E to the X. Okay, you guys, this is just a factoring problem. What are the factors of negative 12? They're going to multiply to give me negative 12, but add to give me negative 1.
4 and 3.
Okay, what kind of 4, what kind of 3? Negative 4, positive 3. What's the problem here? Not that it's wrong. What is your A value? 2, so we need to divide. So I have e to the x minus 2 equals 0. And I have 2e to the x plus 3 equals 0. So now if we solve, e to the x equals 2. What's the opposite of e? ln. So if you take the natural log of both sides. In your calculators, guys, what is the natural log of 2? 0.693. Okay, perfect. And then when I solve here, I have e to the x equals negative 3 over 2. You can stop right there. If you don't realize that, you can stop right there. You're just kind of going through the motions. If you take the natural log of both sides, what happens when you take the natural log of a negative number? It does not work. No solution. So just check that. You guys will have some right triangle word problems. All right, probably just one. But let's think about our words. If a ladder is leaning against the building, what is that? Hypotenuse. I'm holding a kite. The kite string from my hand is the what? Hypotenuse. If I want to know how the distance between the base of the building and the fire hydrant 25 feet away, that's the bottom. That's your X value. If I want to know the height of the tree, okay, good. If I tell you the angle of depression, what else am I telling you? The bottom angle, the angle of elevation at the bottom. All right. And again, I mentioned this yesterday, but if you're given a problem like, you don't have to write this down, you can just look at it. And I give you x equals 4 and x equals -3. And I say, what is the average rate of change? You just use the slope formula. I'm giving you two x values to plug in to find y, and then you use the slope formula. Yeah? Okay, guys, finito.